Okay, in this video I just wanted to have a chat in this video about the costs and benefits of free trade and some of the impacts that trade can have on efficiency, particularly technical and allocative efficiency. So in terms of the benefits of protecting local producers, just don't try and memorise all of these, but just have a few benefits in mind of protecting local producers. So one may be protecting infant industries from the threat of competition. Often infant industries can't survive with lower tariffs because they can't compete against foreign imported products because of their higher cost structures. It prevents the effects of trade dumping. Trade dumping is when countries overseas try and dump things on our shores below their cost price in order to get rid of competition and then take over the market, and that wouldn't be possible if they had to be charged really high tariffs. They place tariffs on things to retaliate against other countries who place tariffs on their products. You could also make the argument that tariffs help to protect our local culture and identity, so not everyone's walking around in American products or things that aren't, I suppose, Australian made. The other thing is that it ensures our long-term security and our ability to provide for ourselves. So you can argue that by having large tariffs, you could argue that we get better, or we have the opportunity to produce in a range of different industries, so we may be better at protecting ourselves. You could also argue that imports sometimes aren't up to the best quality standards, so protecting us from foreign products may improve safety. In terms of problems with trade restrictions, and again, we'll look at these the other way around, but it reduces competition, can lead to inflation because we have to pay higher prices for imports with tariffs. There's less incentive to be efficient. We don't get those benefits from economies of scale because we're only producing for Australians, we're not producing for the whole world. And in the long term, it can reduce our international competitiveness. And something that's really key is looking at why protection is referred to as what we call a self-defeating strategy. So the idea is that protection helps to provide jobs for Australian industries where potentially we don't have comparative advantage or we struggle to compete with foreign products. So the problem, though, with high tariffs, high protection, high quotas and things like that, is there's less incentive for firms to boost their efficiency and performance. So if firms know they're being protected by large tariffs, by large tariffs on their products, then they don't have that incentive to try and boost efficiency because they're not competing against foreign rivals, or they can charge higher prices and still make sales. So what's going to happen is foreign products are going to become more and more efficient, and their prices are going to go down and down and down, and that's going to mean that while our prices either stay the same or go up a little bit, products overseas are going to keep going down in price as they are exposed to more competition from overseas. So what's going to happen then is that they are able to take over Australian markets in the future unless we increase our protection even more. So we need to consistently increase protection on our industries, otherwise, as they become more efficient and their prices continue to drop, while ours stay relatively similar, it's going to mean that we will buy more and more imports unless we can protect our industries even more. And what that's going to lead to is even bigger tariffs in the future, which will lead to even more inefficiencies within our industries. So when you're answering a question about why protection is seen as a self-defeating strategy, the idea is that protection can lead to reduced efficiency within our local industries. That should say efficiency. As firms face reduced competitive pressures from imports. This reduced efficiency can lead to higher costs of production and reduce our international competitiveness. While foreign firms are exposed to competition and are more likely to be more efficient and invest to keep their prices low, Australians aren't likely to do that. This will force Australian governments to continue to increase tariffs due to the large differences in prices, or face the prospect that in the future these businesses will close down anyway. So one of the problems, particularly with our car industry, is that they were protected for too long, and therefore they didn't establish these more efficient practices for producing goods and services. So it's important that you talk about why it's self-defeating and why it can hurt these businesses in the future if they don't develop their efficiency and don't become more efficient going forward. So the benefits of free trade. Free trade liberalisation is estimated to have added about 2.5 to 3.5% to our economy, and about $3,900 per annum per worker. The average worker has benefit to the tune of around $4,000 because of free trade. Free trade is critical in stimulating growth. It helps to boost productivity and makes our economy more dynamically and dynamic efficient as well. It also forces businesses to restructure to combat the high levels of competition and take advantage of new opportunities. So we know there's now cheaper imports, So Australian firms know, that they have to become more efficient or they're going to struggle to compete. They now have a greater discipline to lower their average costs and offer products, the best products, because they know that if they don't do that, they're not going to be able to compete with foreign markets. All of this helps to reduce inflation and help to keep us more competitive, which should lead to stronger growth and employment in the long term. So basically, these links can really be made to all of the goals, forcing us to restructure, to combat cheaper prices overseas, which boosts efficiency, shifting resources to areas of comparative advantage. All this is going to lead to improvements for reducing inflation, boosting employment, and stimulating growth. Other benefits, you need to be able to articulate really clearly how free trade helps both allocative efficiency and technical efficiency. So from an allocative efficiency point of view, resources are more likely to go to areas that are going to maximise our living standards. So we will shift resources to areas where we have comparative advantage. That should help to boost productivity and mean greater output per unit of input, which then helps to boost living standards because of lower prices and more access to goods and services. Protection distorts the price mechanism. So basically the government doesn't allow resources to shift into the best areas if we have protection. When protection is removed, the competitive market will allow efficient firms to prosper and less efficient firms will die out. And those resources will be redeployed where they're going to maximise allocative efficiency. So in Australia, it's inefficient to have car industries because we're not productive in those areas. By getting rid of those protection, we can help to shift resources to where we do possess allocative efficiency. In terms of technical efficiency, first of all, free trade can mean we produce greater volumes of goods and services by specialising. By exposing firms to strong competition, they need to find the most efficient ways to produce. They need to be looking for better technology, more trying to establish world's best practice, training up their employees. All of this is the aim to reduce costs and hopefully try and achieve more technical efficiency. So Australian firms will also need to be more adaptive to changing economic conditions. So they're more likely to be dynamically efficient as well because resources will quickly move to areas that aren't competitive and they don't have that protection to save them anymore. Trade liberalisation and international competitiveness, we'll talk about in the next video.